everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I am Alexander Lee, the Business Development Coordinator here at ComSource. Today I'm going to be joined by two of our partners to discuss a compelling cloud solution that together will give you the tools to form an effective cloud strategy, give you the performance and security you need in a predictable and economical cost structure. These two partners, the first is Komprise. Komprise is an intelligent data management platform that will help you become more data-driven in the way that your organization looks at your data, knows your data, moves your data, and accesses your data. And one of the places that you can move your data to is found in this complementary solution from Orock's Secure Cloud. Orock is a FedRAMP certified cloud provider and complies with HIPAA, NIST, DoD standards, and more. Aside from providing the security and performance that you expect in the cloud, Orock does not charge ingress or egress fees. So in combination with the insights provided by Komprise, this results in a nimble, economical, and predictable secure cloud solution that should be the cornerstone for any hybrid cloud strategy. So we're very excited to have both of them here today with us. So first, I am going to give you a quick overview of ComSource and kind of explain who we are, why we're here, and why we're working with Komprise and Orock. So ComSource has been in business for over 30 years. We're headquartered here in upstate New York, right in Syracuse. And we have about 40 technology partners, but we take pride in the fact that we support everything that we sell. So we have a team, a full bench of certified engineers who both work hands-on from design to delivery to provide our customers and support them after the fact, after we've delivered a solution. Our extensive professional and managed services team provides everything from assessments to contract management and remote managed services, so 24/7 coverage for monitoring your environment, proactive alerts, things like that. So one thing that's interesting, or at least unique about us, is our history with both the private and public sector. So half of our leadership team came from the public sector. Previously, were working as directors or above at regional information centers, or RICs as they're called in New York. And our other half of our leadership team came from the public sector, former CTOs from the likes of Dell, IBM, EMC, and the such. So we have a great leadership team here really focused on our customers and driving value with the technology that we provide. So a little bit more about what ComSource actually does, a couple breakouts here. Today we're going to be talking more, like I said earlier, about hybrid cloud and storage and security, making part of your hybrid cloud strategy come alive here. So the last thing here too is the services. Again, you'll see under the cloud services here, we're going to talk a little bit more about those strategies and costing models. But like I said earlier, ComSource provides hands-on service for everything that we sell and support. And the last thing here, financial services, which I should point out is a little bit different. We offer financial services directly in-house here at ComSource. We have had a pretty sizable leasing division for approximately our entire time we've been in business, over 30 years. And through that, we're able to provide more flexible cost options for our customers. So whether that's in the form of CapEx or OpEx leasing, actually buying back equipment you already have and leasing that back to you, or setting up structured repayments for getting through tough budget cycles. So a lot of that ties into our lifecycle management programs as well, where we can actually help track and deploy assets out in the field. So hope that's a good ground level summary of ComSource. Here's a quick overview of the types of customers that we service. Again, we're headquartered in Syracuse, New York. We have customers throughout the Northeast, all up through New England, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. So nowhere that we won't go if we're needed. So first, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Randy Hopkins from Komprise. Randy is the Vice President of Global Systems Engineering there at Komprise, and he's going to talk us through and give us a demo of the Komprise platform before we throw it over to Orock to talk more about them as a storage target. So I'll hand it over to Randy and let him take it from there. Randy?
Well, thank you, Alex. Hi, folks. My name is Randy Hopkins. I run the systems engineering group over at Komprise, and today we're going to talk to you a little bit about what Komprise does, some use cases, show you a really cool product demo, and give you a really good understanding of our platform. So to get started here, what we're seeing out in the world today is a little bit different than it was 10 years ago. Multi-cloud is now a new normal with our customers and with the ecosystem customers out in the world. There's a big mix of NFS and SMB from the past, and the most recently, a lot of data being created in S3. So unstructured data is growing about 42% per year across the ecosystem out in the world, and folks are trying to figure out what to do with it. A lot of folks have a share of different type of cloud vendors. They have more than one cloud provider, and they're trying to figure out a way to manage that data growth and also manage the data across their cloud ecosystem. Across Komprise's install base, which are hundreds of customers, just a quick quiz for you folks is, how much of the data do you think that we see out in the world and Komprise customers is cold, meaning it hasn't had any reads or writes in more than a year, but yet it's sitting on the primary storage, it's being backed up, and it's being replicated to a DR site. So just quick thought on what your thinking might be. How much of the data is cold? Well, the answer is about 76% of the data that Komprise sees is cold, meaning it hasn't been touched in more than a year by any read application or write application. Yet it's still sitting on primary storage. It's still being backed up a number of times, and licenses for backup are being paid for, and then it's also sitting on a DR site as well. So the opportunity here is to help folks build a cloud strategy and demonstrate some cost savings by leveraging Komprise. So across our customers that we see, the big priorities that we're solving for them, and why are they buying Komprise and why are they implementing Komprise in their ecosystem, is number one is save me money. My data is doubling every 2 to 3 years, but my budgets aren't, so how can you save me money and still let me save that data? Help me with my cloud strategy. So cloud strategies are very key and very important, but they're not very easy. So can you help me with a cloud strategy and help me build one and make it simple so that I don't have to hire an army of people to modify my applications, for example. And then also give me an idea of what data that I can move to the cloud, or what data should I move to the cloud. This is another big request that we get in the problem that we're solving. And how do I accelerate? And now that I know what data needs to move to the cloud, and now that I have a cloud strategy, how can I accelerate and manage data between my on-prem and my cloud? And now, how can I control data sprawl and growing costs? And so I have cloud data out there, and I don't know what's there. How can you help me control that? And these are the things that our customers are asking us for, that we've helped them with. But to get started, they need to know, first of all, tell me about my data profile before I make decisions. So maybe you're looking down the barrel of a storage refresh. You've got an application that's running slow. You need some all-flash storage for it. You're thinking about what you're doing with your storage. Can you help me make decisions? Can you give me analytics about my data before I make those decisions? And also, once I do that, can you help me with migrations as well? Okay, so these are the kind of things that we're helping customers with. And the way we help them is we've built a platform to help our customers become a data-driven enterprise in the hybrid cloud era. And our platform is, what we did is we looked around the world, we looked around at the applications about how folks have been managing their unstructured data, and we built a single platform to take care of all of these use cases. Everything from optimizing the storage by moving the cold data to the cloud transparently, and the end user doesn't even know what happened, to the migration to the cloud or across data centers, Windows to Windows, Unix to Unix, S3 to S3, on-prem to the cloud, and back and forth. Also, leveraging the cloud to create a data copy in the cloud in its native format for low-cost DR, for example. the ability to take data from a lot of different locations and build virtual data lakes, all the while giving access to that data in its native format. So maybe you have Windows data from a number of different platforms, log files, things like that, but you want to keep them, put them in the cloud just to save them because they have value, but access them with the same ACLs and attributes with a native application. Some of our key wins and how we've helped some key partners, just a small sample, is helping customers isolate and consolidate Isilon to a new storage platform at PacBio, helping Pfizer with data migration to a new platform and move into the cloud, help Yale with their storage footprint and archiving, and then a lot of migration work over at Qualcomm, for example. From a key case study or an example of a implementation is some major healthcare provider that we have. One of them is they have a requirement to keep 15 years of data retention. We help them cut the data retention costs by showing them that 80% of that data was cold, and that ended up being archived over to IBM Cause. So we can archive it to any cloud vendor, and there's no disruption whatsoever to the users. And anyway, dropped their costs down considerably and gave them more operational efficiency and built a cloud strategy for them. And they did not have to change the way they do business or the way their applications work. So let's go into what the product looks like and show you a picture is worth 1,000 words. So let's show you a couple quick demonstrations on how Komprise actually does this. So what you're looking at here is the Komprise UI that actually runs in the cloud, and what you're looking at here is a picture of an ecosystem with a lot of different types of sources out here, a lot of Windows servers, Unix servers, things like that. And we're very, very simple. When the user installs Komprise, or we help them install it, they simply add a file server over here. And once they add that file server, we start crawling through it and giving them analytics about their data. So the first thing you do is say, tell me a little bit about my data. And you can see here in this environment, across all of those file shares, they have about 2.1 petabytes of data. And the blue shows it hasn't been accessed in between 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, and greater than 3 years. So in this environment, you can see just by quick glancing at it that more than 50% of the data is cold, hasn't been accessed in more than a year. You can also see how much of the data is hot as well. So you can mouse over and see how much of my data has been accessed in the last month or the last 3 months, for example. Excuse me. So it gives you an idea of a little bit of profile of the data. We can also show down here that what is the data growth rate for for all these environments. You can see here about 20% year-on-year growth. You can see how much capacity would be needed over the next 2 to 3 years based on those growth rates. Also, what we're able to do is across that whole ecosystem, give a aggregated view of what is sitting on my storage and how cold is it, what file types and things like that. So what types of files are consuming the biggest amount of capacity by file type, by file size, who is consuming the most amount of space, and how much of their data is cold, the top groups, the top directories, the top shares, and things like that. So a lot of different profile views about the data. And you're looking at an aggregate of all the data in the ecosystem, but you can also drill down and look at specific shares as well. So just click on the shares that the customer would want to look at. So that gives it a view of what's sitting there. Tell me what I've got first, and then now help me save money, help me build a cloud strategy, help me do something with it, build a declarative approach that'll take care of itself. So in this example, we're looking at a medical university here. And the medical university, what we've done is taken their data and broke it into things like X-ray images are on this share here. Home directories would be a couple shares. And then student data might be yet another couple of other different shares as well. So what the user could do then, what you can do is say, hey, for my student data, for example, I want to, if my students haven't accessed their data in more than 6 months, they're probably not taking that class any longer, or that class is probably finished. But I want to preserve that for a while, but I just don't want it sitting on my primary storage. I don't want to keep backing it up. I want to move it. I want to move that cold data to the cloud and save 10x my storage costs, for example, or maybe 15x my storage costs. So you just simply say, I want to modify the student data and say, if the files haven't been accessed in more than 6 months, which happens to be about 625 terabytes of data, move that over to an archive bucket in the cloud, for example. You can also say, I also want to keep a copy of everything in a offsite location for maybe ransomware protection, or just an offsite copy for analytics, or to do anything I want to do with it. So you can say, I want to take a copy of all that data and also put it in the cloud somewhere and put that into an S3 cloud offsite there. So then what's going to happen there is we're going to, and oh, by the way, if the student hasn't accessed their data in more than 1 year, I want to basically delete that data, because if they haven't accessed their data in a year, they're not a student, the class is finished, they've had a chance to back it up already, just delete it and clean it up. And so what we do is you can set this to a year here, and then what happens is those files will get moved to a hidden folder. It's called Komprise trash. And so then now this will kick on. All of these activities will occur. All those files will get moved, tiered off, copied off, cleaned off. And then what happens is we after that's finished, after you activate that plan, you can activate it and test it, or activate it. And after you activate that plan, we will kick on and we'll finish it, and we'll kick on and run it again. So it's a very top-down declarative programming paradigm, where you set it once and you don't have to worry about it again. It's not like an imperative plan where you have to go and repeat the steps every month or every 6 months, or ask users to do anything. So that's a very quick example of what we can do there. So that just built a cloud strategy. It also built a hierarchical storage management strategy. It also built like an offsite DR strategy. And at the same time, as I was doing that, you can see how much cold data would be tiered off. If you would have noticed over here, you would see these numbers changing as well. And what that means is how much is that going to save me to do that, okay? So, and the way that's calculated is there's a cost model that's built into our platform that you as a customer can insert the costs of what it costs you for your primary storage. What we see, if we reset this to default model here, you'll see primary storage is running about $700 a terabyte per year. And then there's backup hardware and backup software licenses as well. So what does it cost you to maintain that storage for a year? You can modify those numbers as you see fit. Maybe you don't back it up, change that to just $1, for example. Maybe you don't have any backup software licenses, change that to $1, for example. So that would be the cost to store that data for a year. And if you move it to a cloud target, how much are you moving? How much is it costing for a terabyte per year for that? And then that's going to be considerably less. We see anywhere from 7 times to 15 times reduction in cost, depending on where it's coming from and where it's going to. And as soon as you hit the save button here, these numbers are recalculated, and it shows how much that's going to save over a 3-year period. And then down here, now that we're actually doing something with the data, you'll see that what's going to happen is the cold data is going to get moved off. It's going to drop your storage footprint, and then that's going to grow over time. Okay, so that shows you a little bit about the do something with my data, build a cloud strategy, save me money. We also have a really strong, robust data migration engine as well. So if you want to do a migration from one platform to another platform, you just select your Windows or Unix share here, and when you do that, you select the source, select the target, and hit apply. And then you have then what happens is a migration job kicks off. And we are seeing about 25, 26, 27 times better performance on migration than the likes of like RoboCopy or rsync, for example. So the job that might take you 4 weeks to migrate data with RoboCopy or rsync or one of those other migration tools, we can get done in a day. So That's with Unix. And with the Windows data, we're seeing about 7 times performance improvement. And the way we do that is it's really cool. We can go into that in a later date, but what we're doing is we're really breaking down the migration into multiple parts, and we're also doing a lot of protocol level optimization. We're able to do that across our Komprise grid of software that runs on-prem, and that grid is a scale-out approach. All 3 of our founders have PhDs in scale-out computing, so we're pretty good at building a scale-out approach and a grid approach to solving problems and scaling. We have another use case as deep analytics. We can show you data about your data that you don't know about. For example, we have one customer who had hundreds and thousands of VMs that were sitting out there. And what you can do is, for example, you can say, how many VMs do I have across my whole ecosystem? You just simply go into the deep analytics tab and say, I want to search for all file types of virtual machine, for example, and hit run. And then you can see across those millions of files, there's about 800,000 VMs, of which you can see, a lot of them haven't been turned on in 3 years, for example. A lot of them haven't been turned on in 2 years. Now you can do something with that data. You can see who has those VMs, where are they located, what shares have them, what users have them, and things like that. A lot of different types of analytics and what if statements can be done here. I want to see all my cold data, all my engineering data, all data tagged with project X, and you can create your own queries and save those queries and things like that. So very, very, very handy thing to do this. You can say, I want to see all my data across all my ecosystem where the user doesn't exist in an Active Directory anymore. So. And things like that hasn't been modified, and do something with that. So a lot of different types of things you can do with it. Another thing Komprise gives you is, we showed you the ability to move data and copy data to the cloud. But what about when the data gets into the cloud? What do you do with it? When it's in an object store somewhere else or on-prem, what can you do with it? We also have the ability to do similar things with that kind of data. Things like be able to look at different types of data stores. And add your data stores, and then go and look at those data stores in a way that you may have not been able to see them before. For example, you see here that these are a bunch of S3 data in different types of classes of storage. This one happens to be AWS, and you can do the same kind of things with that data, even though it's in S3 buckets that I showed you with the data that's sitting on Windows or Unix, for example. You see we have 309 million objects out there. How many of those out of that 309 million objects are a VM file type, for example? So there's only 324 VMs out there for this query. We also do a lot of integration with cost savings as well. You can go and say, I want to build a plan that takes data that hasn't been accessed and move it into different classes of storage, for example. So you can say, for example, for AWS, you can see if the files haven't been accessed in more than a year, move it to IA. If it hasn't been accessed in 2 years, move that to Glacier. If it hasn't been accessed in 3 years, move that over to Deep Glacier, for example. And as you're walking through this, what happens is we're showing the cost savings from that service provider based on the attributes and the permissions that you use to log in to that service provider. And we'll show you if you didn't have a plan, or if you did have a plan, what the cost savings would be down here as well. So when we're doing all this work, by the way, like I said earlier, we're making it transparent to the user. And when we do the archiving of those files, what it looks like to the user and to the application is completely transparent. And what it looks like under the covers is like this. You can see there's a lot of different types of files in this directory. Some of them are consuming zero space, and those are the ones that have been tiered over to an S3 cloud target, and they're consuming zero space, but yet the user can still access it, the application can still access it, just like they would have yesterday. And what we're doing is we're not loading any software on the storage, no software on the servers, no software on the clients. We're using industry standard Windows constructs and industry standard Unix constructs called symbolic links under Unix and symlink under Windows. So if you look under the covers here, what this is really doing is it's pointing to a shortcut, and so that's how that's being accessed. So that's completely transparent, and it really truly is the easy button there. So let's go back over to the. So that kind of wraps it up with the product demo. So I showed you all of these things here. I showed you the analyze the data before doing something with it, and then archiving with no disruption to the user. Be able to copy data to the cloud, the migration jobs that we can do, S3 to S3, NAS to NAS, and be able to build virtual data lakes. I also kind of reviewed with you one of our very key applications that and use cases is migration. Migration is kind of the first conversation with a lot of projects, because you got to do something, move to a different storage platform or do something with your data. Migration is usually where you start the conversation, and then you start thinking about what else can I do along with my migration. So again, our migration is a pretty robust migration. It's very fast, it's very simple, very enterprise class. So direct data access, what that means is, I mentioned that earlier, is even though we move data from the primary site into cloud targets, you can still access that data from any tier. It doesn't have to be rehydrated. You can go to where it's located. You can mount those volumes, even though they're in a cloud target and it's in its native format. Okay. So what about my existing cloud data? I showed you a little bit earlier with that demo, the ability to have visibility across all the clouds, whether they're on-prem or public clouds, and be able to migrate and move data back and forth from them. The ability to forecast cost savings and view all of that from a single pane of glass. This is an example of a Northwestern University who had they had zero visibility into their central pool of unstructured data. What we were able to do is go in there and reduce their storage costs significantly by creating some custom archiving plans. Actually, they use Komprise. We're not a service bureau. We help install the software, but the customer runs the application. And they actually moved their cold data from Isilon to ECS and AWS. And again, zero disruption to the users, zero disruption to the students, the faculty, and things like that. So key questions that you might ask yourself is, how are you classifying your unstructured data? What is your plan for the onslaught of the data growth, and how have you handled migrations in the past, and what type of pain have you experienced? And then from a cloud strategy is, what's the strategy to get your data to the cloud without rewriting your applications and your processes? And once it's there, what can you do with it? How are you going to manage those clouds, whether they be on-prem or public, for example? We are very, very unique. Like I said, we purposely built all these use cases into a single platform. We're the only company that does that. And we have a lot of patents on our approach. Everything from the analytics first, we always believe in analytics first, and then basically move it smartly, and then take control of your data. And that's kind of what we're all about, and make it simple. We do have a certification class that we invite existing customers to, or even people who are thinking about buying Komprise or deploying Komprise. It's a certification class. It's one day. I'm sorry, 6 hours. It's 2 different 3-hour sessions, and this class really covers 3 major goals. One is, what is the architecture of Komprise? What's it look like? How does it work under the covers and things like that? And how is it designed? Number 2 is, how do you get it deployed and working? And then once it's deployed and working, how do you run it? How do you do the things that I just showed you to do? And those are the three major objectives, and we have labs and hands-on and all that. And we are not charging for this course. When we were doing it instructor-led in person, we had a fee for it. It was $825 for the course, but we do not charge for it for obvious reasons. Now we want, it's COVID time, so we want to help people out on this one. So that's what I have for Komprise. Thank you for listening. And Alex, that's all I have. If there's no questions, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Randy. That was great. A great overview. So now to kind of fill out the picture here, we're going to bring in Dustin Jackson from Orock, and he's going to talk through the Orock Secure Cloud, some of the key components and technical features of their cloud and how it compares to other solutions. So Dustin, I'll throw it over to you. Here you go.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it. This is Dustin Jackson from Orock. I'll go ahead and just bring up my deck, and I'll give you all just an overview of Orock, how we work with Komprise, and just as importantly, what benefits you can get out of the Orock public cloud. So yes, just to give you an overview of Orock, Orock Technologies, we started about 4 years ago, where we our founder, John Leone, came up with the concept of coming up with a cloud where we're providing compute resources, storage resources for our customers, yet we maintain a federal grade security posture. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So essentially, yes, our cloud is FedRAMP. And the Orock Technologies story and the customer base we primarily have served has been the federal space, right? And so this would essentially be, the likes of the DoD, NIH, the U.S. Army, and even some military contractors as well to take advantage of this FedRAMP cloud that we've built. And as of recently, we're making sure that, we're addressing the needs of verticals that are highly regulated in the commercial space as well: oil and gas, media and entertainment, utilities, healthcare, et cetera. And I'll go into how we address the needs of those organizations as well. But just a little bit in depth about what we actually do. So Orock Technologies, we provide the Orock Public Cloud, which is essentially secure infrastructure as a service. And so with our secure infrastructure as a service, we do have compute, we do have storage available, all of which is built entirely on HPE hardware. We make no, we don't disguise that. We don't white box any labels. We have standardized all our infrastructure on HPE, and that actually goes into the security strategy that we have because we follow the HPE Silicon Root of Trust. To augment the storage and compute that we have, we also have access to a private fiber optic backbone. Essentially, this is layer 2 networking, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, for this infrastructure as a service offering that we provide, our customers can take advantage of the compute and the storage and the resources that we have available, either in a single tenant mode or a multi-tenanted mode as well. So the goal here in terms of the platform that we've built, which is really the brainchild of John Leone, one of our co-founders, is really to deliver true hybrid cloud to our customers. Now, I'm just going to take a pause for a second and just address hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud obviously means a lot of things to a lot of people, and it can mean different things. And so what I'm actually referring to as it pertains to hybrid cloud is the ability for customers to have applications that are running on premise and be able to move those applications, move those workloads, move those databases to our cloud and back without any sort of financial or technical recourse. And I'll go into that a little bit more as well. But that's what we specialize in. And we do so. And essentially what sets us apart is we're able to deliver on that hybrid cloud strategy. But we work with our customers very closely to make sure that their vision of hybrid cloud and their goals of hybrid cloud are fully executed. So as I mentioned, we primarily have served the federal space, the federal vertical, but obviously there is a need for the security posture that we have, the security posture which is FedRAMP, in highly regulated verticals as well. Financial services, your healthcare, your energy, oil and gas, et cetera. And so we're making great strides in those avenues as we bring those customers to fully grasp their hybrid cloud goals. So just to kind of fast forward a little bit in terms of Orock And what sets us apart, the Orock public cloud, and what sets us apart from some of the other clouds that are out there? So number one, as I mentioned, we are FedRAMP authorized. And so being FedRAMP authorized, it's a very arduous process to become authorized, let alone to maintain that. And so essentially the Orock public cloud has 325 security controls that we abide by, and that's for our FedRAMP moderate offering. In our FedRAMP monitoring offering, we have a location on the East Coast, location on the West Coast, for customers to consume the resources that we have available. Now, we also have FedRAMP High, which essentially is 421 security controls, and we also have that available for customers as well. The data centers that we're operating our public cloud out of, they are SOC 2 Type 2. And as I mentioned, we standardized all of our compute, all of our storage on HPE to follow that Silicon root of trust and supply chain responsibility. So essentially, we are really making sure we're obsessive about the security posture that we have with our cloud. And that's, really to the benefit of the customers, the tenants that are leveraging our infrastructure. Now, we do have access to a layer 2 private fiber optic network. And so essentially, Orock, generally, we are one hop away from a customer's point of presence on this network that we have access to. And so essentially, we have bought into and are providing a way for applications, workloads to very quickly, with low latency, access the resources, access the storage, access the compute that we have available. Now, one of the biggest differentiators with Orock versus other clouds that are out there is that we are entirely open source. So we are leveraging federal grade open source infrastructure. And so that's essentially a way where we're bringing flexibility to the infrastructure as a service offering that we are providing, as well as being able to offer a very unique price point to our customers as well. And so customers that are leveraging KVM are probably familiar with, Red Hat OpenShift, which we're using today. We're also going through the FedRAMP process of using HPE Ezmeral. And so very much our cloud has been developed where we know that customers are moving increasingly towards open source infrastructure as a service, particularly OpenStack, and we're meeting the customers there on that journey. And so with the pricing model that we have, we're very unique in our cloud in that we have a very predictable cost model. Generally with the cloud, there is, there's sort of trepidation to go towards the cloud and consume cloud because the mantra is kind of a Hotel California model, most public clouds out there, where you move your workloads there, you move your data there, you develop applications, but yet you can't actually get your data out without some significant financial penalty. We take that away because we have no egress fees. So when I mentioned that, there is no recourse financially for your applications, data, and workloads to move between our cloud and your on-premise environment for a true hybrid cloud strategy, we mean that, and we're able to deliver on that, and we're delivering that for customers today. We are obsessive about infrastructure, we are obsessive about security, and we take that obsession and we make sure that our customers are getting all the benefits of that. And so we have a 24/7/365 customer support service where all of the operational staff within that customer service center, our network operations center, our security operations center is US based. And so lastly, because we have that FedRAMP security posture, we're able to accomplish and we're able to meet the compliance requirements of some of those highly regulated verticals that I mentioned before. So for example, healthcare institutions, right? We already meet the HIPAA high-tech compliance requirement. We also meet the PCI DSS compliance requirement as well, because we have this FedRAMP posture. and the security controls that we have. Now, that's a little bit, that's more broad about Orock in terms of why we're different. Now, we work closely with Komprise, particularly because Komprise can point to us as a S3 target, full stop. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in terms of what that actually looks like. So for our storage that we have available, our object storage is actually being presented from the OpenStack offering, which is Ceph. And so by using Ceph, and that's all, again, on HPE gear, HPE storage that we're using, we're able to have customers that are using Komprise connect to us via the S3 protocol. And so the benefit is, as Komprise, with the software that, with the offering that it is in terms of providing more visibility into your unstructured data and giving you the ability to drive down costs with a true cloud model by leveraging Orock, you now have a cloud tier where your costs are highly predictable. You know what your fixed cost per gigabyte is going to be. You already know what your network cost to actually send that data will be. And so essentially, you now have a archive tier in the cloud where you have no surprises, and you have 325 security controls as mandated by the federal government, protecting your data as well in a SOC 2 Type 2 data center. So that's essentially the benefit of why using Orock storage against your Komprise solution. Now, just a couple of points about our storage as well. So we have two tiers available for our object storage. The first being our hot object storage, which is essentially hard disk speeds. This would be your equivalent to an S3 offering from AWS or even Hot Blob from Azure. And then we also have premium object storage, which is essentially SSD speeds or performance, if you will. Now, this object storage can be dedicated, but generally customers that are consuming our object storage are using it in a multi-tenanted fashion. And also there is geo-resiliency available for our object storage as well. And as I mentioned, that geo-resiliency would span the continental United States, where we have a facility in the East Coast by way of Secaucus, New Jersey, and in the West Coast by way of Los Angeles County. Here's just a snapshot as to the impact, the significance of having, our zero egress fee policy. So, when we just look at the, stated price of Orock object storage, it's roughly 1.9 cents a gigabyte. And so that's roughly on par with some of the other public providers out there. Your AWSs, your Azures, which do actually have a proprietary cloud format, whereas with us, we're open source. But when you factor in egress fees, the cost model, the monthly cost becomes significantly disparate. Where if we were taking the example of storing 50 terabytes of data, probably sourced from Komprise, into Orock or these other providers, if you had to actually restore 10 terabytes of that data out of your object storage, the one operation in AWS would cost upwards of $900. In Azure, it would be about $870. And with Orock, that one operation would cost you nothing. And the same lends itself for 30 terabytes of data, where now this example becomes a little bit more exacerbated, where that operation would cost you upwards of $2,600 in AWS. And roughly about the same in Azure. And again, $0 in Orock. So, when we have a offering like Komprise that exists to essentially drive down the cost of your unstructured data, you now can pair that with an offering like the Orock public cloud storage, object storage, and again, not only drive down your costs of storing the data, but now you can access that data without any sort of financial recourse and, again, technical recourse. truly meet your goal to drive down costs and have a true cloud experience. So that's essentially it regarding Orock and what we actually bring to the table and how we work with Komprise. Here's a snapshot in terms of some of the folks that are on my team that are joining me. Mario Guariello for your East Coast liaison, Don Poole, who's in the central United States, who's handling and working with customers there, myself, where I'm working with customers out in the West. And that's it from me.
Have today is for Komprise. And question is, how is Komprise's technology different from stub-based approaches? Randy?
That's a great question. We get that one a lot. Historically, there's been a lot of technology that does data archiving, and they put proprietary software on the servers, on the clients, or the storage. Komprise doesn't. We have some patented technology where we're leveraging industry standard constructs like symlinks on Windows and symbolic links on Unix. We do not put any software on the storage, no software on the servers, and no software on the clients. So it's completely transparent, and we call that transparent move technology.
Perfect. Okay. Second question, again, for Randy at Komprise, how does Komprise get 20 times more performance for migration jobs than other platforms?
Yeah, good one. Imagine a migration job taking 26 or 27 days with somebody else, and it interrupts. In the meantime, you've got to restart it. That's a bad weekend for you. What we're able to do is get migration down it's actually like 26 to 27 times faster than rsync or robocopy. What we do is our platform was built and designed by people with advanced degrees, and a couple of them have PhDs in scale-out computing. And we actually break the migration into separate parts. And we do that with scaling out our grid of data movers or virtual appliances. And that automatically happens across our grid. So we break it down into separate parts, and we work on it with different tasks. We also reduce the number of round trips over the protocol during a migration, and we basically fill up the packets to eliminate unnecessary chatter. So combining those together, we're seeing around 26, 27 times faster than rsync and robocopy on Unix migrations, and about 7x times faster on Windows data migrations.
Interesting. Okay. Great question. Thanks, everybody. And last one for you, Randy. So for Komprise, we've talked about how it can be used within the cloud. Is it possible to use Komprise for on-premise data? And if so, how would that work?
Yeah. Unstructured data lives on 3 different protocols. It lives on Windows, which is SMB, Unix, which is NFS, and Object Store, which is S3, if you will. So all of that is unstructured, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem. We can take care of it. We can analyze it. We can migrate it, and we can help you with it. So all of them, we do all of it.
Oh, great. Yeah, especially for those on the call here with hybrid strategies too, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So good questions. Thanks, Alex.
All right, so a couple more questions here. So let's go over to Orock, to Dustin Jackson. So Dustin, first question here. When you say that Orock has federal grade security, what benefit does that give private sector organizations?
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. So essentially, when we created this cloud, we knew that we wanted to make sure that we didn't sacrifice on any sort of security. So yes, we have tenants within this cloud that are federal entities, but keep in mind the 325 security controls at a minimum that we adhere to by being FedRAMP is to the benefit not only of tenants that happen to be federal agencies and the Department of Defense, but also the private organizations as well. So keep in mind, right, in 2020, as we roll into 2021, ransomware and compromisation of customers' infrastructure is at an all-time high. And so it's only to the benefit of your organization, even though you are within the private sector, to make sure that any cloud that your organization is taking advantage of has security at top of mind. And so just because we have the FedRAMP authorization doesn't mean there's really any detriment. It's more so a benefit because we are adhering strictly to these 325 security controls as mandated by the federal government.
All right. No, that's great. Okay. So, Dustin, second question. What is the benefit of Orock being open source?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So another unique thing about Orock is this is a cloud that is built from the ground up entirely on OpenStack. And so it's not just and by OpenStack, this is, more and more organizations are getting familiar with OpenStack and the benefits of OpenStack. And so one of the benefits, or really the main benefit of Orock Cloud being built on open source, entirely on the OpenStack infrastructure, is that there is a level of flexibility that that customers can enjoy, right? So we're using open source code for our compute. So for example, we're using Nova, we're using Cinder for our block, we're using Ceph for our object storage. So essentially, there really isn't any restrictions in terms of how customers are able to tap in and leverage this open source code as it pertains to our cloud. So in a more applicable example, imagine an application that you're using on the right, on your premises, and it has also been built on OpenStack. So now that application can seamlessly traverse between Orock and your premises without any sort of technical restrictions whatsoever. Unlike some of the other clouds that are out there, their format, such as, I hate to pick on AWS, but AWS, for example, they have a proprietary format of EC2. They have a proprietary format of EBS block storage. And so what's difficult about that is once applications are built for that, they're technically they're kind of locked in from a technical perspective. They're kind of locked into that structure. It's very difficult to move that infrastructure, or at least that application dependent on that infrastructure, to other clouds, because Orock is entirely open source. Again, we're built on OpenStack. Now there is a level of flexibility that we're able to provide because, again, there's nothing proprietary in terms of what we're using as infrastructure as a service.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Dustin. Especially, we were talking about people struggling to put together a cloud strategy. That example is a great explanation as to a big hurdle in your way. It's right off the bat. So that's very interesting. Well, the third question here actually is related to that too. So someone asked, their organization's already using AWS and a little bit of Azure. So how would they go about integrating Orock into their existing cloud strategy?
Absolutely. And that is a question we get all the time. We built the Orock Cloud, and we are pushing the Orock Cloud, knowing that customers that are along their cloud journey, or even those that are starting their cloud journey, the idea is to have a multi-cloud strategy, right? It's really in the best interest of any organization taking advantage of the cloud to be very prescriptive in terms of how they're actually leveraging the cloud. And so my team, my engineers that I work with in terms of, the solutions that are actually designed, and even the engineers that are administering top line customer support, once Orock Cloud is being leveraged, we're laser focused in making sure that the customer has success, right? And they know exactly why they're using the Orock Cloud, right? And so customers that are already using AWS, we want to make sure that we're being very prescriptive as to, hey, AWS has valuable offerings, but some of the more commoditized offerings like infrastructure, block storage, object storage, compute, that doesn't necessarily need to remain in AWS, especially which, the proprietary nature of AWS's infrastructure as a service, as well as some of the cost prohibitive factors of really getting a good total cost of ownership from that, right? We would we advise customers, hey, make sure you're doing a multi-cloud strategy that is advantageous, where if you need infrastructure, you need compute, block storage, object storage, you leverage Orock, and we can always cross connect into AWS to use some of the more enhanced features that they have at AWS. And it's the same for GCP. GCP has a lot of machine language and AI tools that customers can leverage, and GCP does a fantastic job at that. But if we're talking about infrastructure as a service, again, leverage Orock and simply just cross connect into GCP and leverage the tools as needed.
Great. Okay, Dustin, we're going to get you out of here on a softball. One last question for you.
Sure.
Where are Orock's data center locations in the U.S., or I guess globally?
Sure. So we have several points of presence here in the United States, as well as a point of presence today in London, England, and we are developing more in EMEA. And so today our data centers in the U.S. are located on the West Coast. We are in Los Angeles County on the East Coast. We're in Secaucus, New Jersey. And then we also have location point of presence building out in Texas today.
You guys are all over. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up Q&A, it looks like. If anybody has any other questions, though, feel free to drop those in the chat, and we'll be sure to address as much as we can in our follow-up. So, again, thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Dustin from Orock and Randy from Komprise. We'll be sending follow-ups to everybody on the call today. So appreciate you joining, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.